Hello everyone. This tutorial video will show you how to use ZDepth Plus, a plugin for ZBrush. Today, I'll do my best to explain how the plugin works and guide you through each step clearly. Alright, then I'll choose an image and convert this 2D line art picture into a cleaner, more defined line art style. After that, I'll transform the image into a 2.5D format so it has more depth and volume. From there, you can add any additional prompt or command you want to further customize the result. For example, now I'll add a command to turn a normal relief image into this wooden style relief. Just make sure to include the front view angle, meaning the image is facing directly forward. With that set, when I press generate, GenMini will create a result that looks very close to the original image. It keeps the main shapes accurate and handles the transformation quite well. Alright, after I have a 2D image that I can convert into a 2.5D result, the output from GenMini still isn't very detailed. So, to improve it, I'll use another tool called Upscale. This helps increase the resolution and bring out more detail in the image. And of course, when using Upscale, you can simply download the Windows version and install it normally. I've already downloaded it earlier, so now I'm going to download this image again. I'll choose the full-size option to get the best quality. Okay, now I'll import this image into the tool. As you can see, it still looks a bit blurry, and the details aren't very clear yet, which is why we'll need to upscale it. Here, I'm going to select the AI model I want to use, and I'll choose the digital art option before clicking upscale. I can also adjust how many times I want to upscale the image, but remember the warning we mentioned earlier, don't push it too high. Upscaling it twice is usually more than enough. So I'll press upscale now. As you can see, the image becomes much clearer, and the details are noticeably sharper after the process. For example, these details will now appear much clearer, right? I can also adjust the zoom here to check the sharpness more closely, or reset it back to 0 if I want to compare. After that, I can drag the view around to examine different areas and see how clean the result looks. Pretty amazing, AI is really something. Once the upscale process is complete, it will generate an upscaled version of the image for me right here. Today, I'd like to introduce ZDepth Plus, a plugin our team created specifically for ZBrush. It's a brand new tool that my team and I have been developing and refining over the past few weeks, and we're excited to share it with you. And this is one of the most complex plugins I've built. As the name suggests, ZDepth uses an AI model to process a 2D image and convert it into a result with richer layers of detail. It produces a depth-based image that, combined with my ZBrush experience in shaping and form, gives the original artwork a more dimensional and appealing look for artists to work with effectively. Furthermore, I also researched something called normal-to-height software. I needed to find AI models capable of generating the best normal maps, allowing them to convert image-based normals into height maps that could then be transformed into a displacement map. This displacement map is layered and structured into different forms of displacement, including those that manage depth and those that directly influence the shaping of the overall form. In addition, there are several supporting layers that help define the level of detail, such as depth, depth shape, dispZ, line art, and bump, each contributing to a more refined and accurate final result. Now, let's talk about the Generate Image to Depth button. When I click on this button, a small window will appear, allowing me to choose the image format I want. It can be either a JPEG or a PNG file. In this example, I'm going to use the image that I just upscaled a moment ago, because it already has enough detail for generating the depth map. Once I've selected the file, all I need to do is click open, and it will start loading right away. When I click open, the plugin will start processing automatically. It usually takes around 3 to 4 minutes to complete, depending on the image size and your system's performance. During this time, it's generating all the depth and related maps in the background. Once the process is done, we can go ahead and check the maps it created to see how they look. Now, when I click on this button here, the color map and the base map will be switched to the mask map automatically. You can also see that we have a depth shape map as well as a depth map. Down here, there's also the dispZ map and the line art map, which are both generated for additional detail. As for some of the extra maps, like bump, I decided not to include buttons for them because that would make the interface look a bit too cluttered. Next, we're not going to talk about the load color and load mask buttons just yet. For now, let's focus on the Apply Depth to Plane button. When I click this button, if you pay attention to the first map, you'll notice that it automatically creates a mask. This mask hides the main subject and helps clean up the background area on the plane, so everything looks much neater. If you want to use the mask that's been generated, simply click Use Mask. But if you don't want to use it, you can just select Skip Mask. In addition, you can always refine or adjust the map later in Photoshop. For example, in some cases, when you click the Edit Map button for the first time, it will open the map for you to make any manual edits or corrections. When you click on Edit Mask for the first time, if there's no Photoshop exe path set yet, the plugin will ask you to choose it manually. So here, we need to locate the Photoshop executable file before continuing. I'll go ahead and browse to my Photoshop installation folder, then select the Photoshop exe. In my case, I'm choosing the CS6 version. Once that's selected, I just press Enter to confirm the path, and now it's all set up and ready to use. So now, I'll also load both the color map and the grayscale map so that everyone can easily check them. This allows us to see the maps that were automatically generated by the plugin. In this case, I can already tell that some areas still look a little messy, so I think I'll clean them up manually. For example, over here, this part isn't completely clean yet, so I'll paint over it with black to remove the unwanted details and make the shape clearer. For the white areas here, I'm going to repaint them to pure white to make everything look cleaner. Also, I can press Ctrl+L to adjust the levels and refine the mask's contrast. This helps balance the light and dark areas more precisely. After finishing the adjustments, I'll select the color layer and delete it, because we only need the mask. Then, I'll save the file and overwrite the existing mask file so the plugin can automatically read the updated version. Now, when I go back to the ZBrush interface and switch back here, you can see the map we just edited has been successfully updated. It's much cleaner now and has been applied to the plane. Next, let's talk about the Load All Maps and PSD button. When I click this button, Photoshop will automatically launch and open all the layers at once. This makes it easier to preview and recheck each map before moving on to the next step. Here we have several layers: color, map, line art, depth blur, depth depth shape, and dispZ. Among them, depth shape gives the best surface result. Depth provides stronger height information, while the other maps help refine the details. As you can see, all of these maps are in grayscale and 16-bit format. Now, when I go back to the plugin, I'll click Apply Depth to Plane followed by Use Mask. This option allows the plugin to use the mask we created earlier to hide the main subject and clean up everything around it. It automatically removes the background and keeps only the important area visible, so the surface looks neat and ready before blending all the layers underneath. After applying the feature, you'll see several layers appear, such as depth blur, depth shape, dispZ, line art, and bump. For now, I'll turn all of these layers off. Let's start by talking about depth blur. This layer gives a soft, blurry surface detail and generally produces a higher, more exaggerated shape. The depth layer provides strong height information, but it doesn't handle rounded forms very well. Now, if you look at depth shape, this is the layer that gives the best surface result in my experience. For example, in this case, I can duplicate the depth shape layer to enhance the form even more and strengthen the overall surface shape. In the Plus version, the system removes the thick or unwanted surface areas generated by the depth map, giving a cleaner result. When I add dispZ, line art, and bump, these layers help manage the smaller details. I can adjust their intensity, like lowering the bump or reducing the line art strength, to keep the details more controlled and balanced. Now I'll turn on both depth blur and depth. With these layers enabled, the blending process for the depth maps is basically complete. I want to highlight again that depth shape produces very strong and clean surface results, so you can consider relying more on that layer. In many cases, you can even turn off depth and depth blur entirely if you want a flatter, smoother bas-relief look that focuses mainly on the overall shape. Now let's talk about load color. You simply load the color map into the plugin. The load mask feature allows you to import an existing mask and apply it directly to the current layer for further editing. Once the mask is loaded, you can refine specific areas, adjust the overall shape, or invert the mask to target the opposite regions. This gives you the ability to clean up unwanted parts without affecting the rest of the image. It's especially useful when you need to reuse a mask generated earlier and continue improving the depth or surface details in a controlled and consistent way. And I can improve the overall shape by using the Move brush to push the surface outward a bit more, which is also commonly referred to as performing a normal move. After adjusting a few layers, I can turn the remaining layers back on to observe how they interact with one another and how they affect the final result. Essentially, when I edit on a separate layer, it simply adds extra shape information on top of the other layers. Since I'm moving the mesh at a lower subdiv level, these changes will mostly influence the larger forms rather than the finer details. Now I'm going to turn on all the layers and check how they blend together. After that, we move on to the Skip Mask button, which lets you continue without using the previous mask. In some cases, the automatically generated masking may not work well, so the user might choose not to use it. In that situation, you can simply click the Skip Mask button to ignore it. The apply process will still continue as normal, and the plugin will clean the outer edges of the bas-relief just the same. Now let's move on to the Apply Depth to Mesh button. Basically, this feature allows us to apply the generated depth information directly onto a 3D mesh. For example, I'll add a simple sphere here, and this mesh already has UVs. In case anyone is not familiar with the term, UV refers to the flat, unwrapped version of a 3D model. It's the way a three-dimensional surface is laid out into a two-dimensional space so textures can be applied correctly. For example, in this case, I'll load the color map, and you can see how it wraps around the entire sphere. This happens because the sphere already has a proper UV layout. I can switch to the UV map view to confirm that everything is set to 1, and then press Morph UV to check how the UVs are unfolded. Once I'm done inspecting the UV layout, I'll turn off the texture so we can continue working with the mesh more clearly. Now I'm going to click Apply Depth to Mesh. When I do that, a message appears saying that this object doesn't have any subdivisions. So I need to increase the subdiv level first. I'll press Ctrl+D and subdivide the mesh about 6 times, or maybe 5 times if I want to test it quickly. After that, I can click Apply Depth to Mesh again. Just like before, I don't need to go through all the other buttons here. I'll simply choose Use Mask so the plugin can apply the depth information directly onto the mesh. After the depth is applied, the displacement layers are now projected onto the mesh. At this point, I want to highlight the depth shape layer again, because you can increase its intensity or even duplicate it to boost the effect. Adjusting this layer gives you more control over the overall surface form. From here, you can continue blending the layers together until you achieve the final result you want.
Rồi mình